Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With the Season 1 Reloaded update, we obviously saw a lot of weapon changes made. We saw some buffs, we saw some nerfs. Overall, it was kind of an interesting weapon tuning update because a lot of what we thought was going to be changed wasn't. Like, a lot of the top meta weapons were left untouched, but we did see some slight meta shifts regardless. So today we are breaking down the new meta update for Warzone as it stands. So we are here on our overall Warzone tier list, and keep in mind this is different from our multiplayer tier list, which we're going to be covering in a few days time. So stay tuned for that because obviously the meta shifted over there as well with this patch. But like I said, a lot of very interesting changes that we assumed were going to happen didn't. There's very few weapons here that are actually going to shift down because of this meta update, but we do have some interesting changes regardless. First though, we of course have to start with the newest weapon to the Warzone arsenal, into the Modern Warfare 2 arsenal, and that is the Chimera. So this is our brand new rifle SMG hybrid, basically the honey badger if you will here. Definitely a close range based weapon. We've already gone over the best way to unlock it, or the fastest way to unlock it, the best setups for it for multiplayer and Warzone as well. And admittedly here in Warzone, I would say this is borderline top tier competitive. It's somewhere in the mix here. I think as it stands, I'm going to go for competitive. It's on the slightly lower end of things. We are going to be adjusting some weapons here, even if they didn't get touched based off of, you know, more playtime and more experience with things, seeing the meta evolve. But the Chimera here, great for sniper support, great for close and mid range, but it does feel like it drops off pretty severely over range. Even if you have a build that's relatively low recoil, its damage feels a little bit more mediocre once you're getting out to, you know, 70, 80, 90 plus meters. So I think that really limits it, whereas a lot of the top tier ones here, you'll notice are a little bit more consistent. But getting into some weapons that changed here. So a big change happened to several pistols actually. The Akimbo P890, the Akimbo X12, the Akimbo Basilisk, and the Akimbo Deagle, or the 50GS, all got nerfs to armored opponents, which of course is basically everyone here in Warzone. Now, the Basilisk and the X12 don't really move out of average. They're still average pistols when it comes down to it. The Deagle also still not really anything special. The P890 nerf, though, I think brings this one down into average. The P890 was insane. You could honestly make a, an argument for it being top tier or even absolute meta before this update took place because it could 3 or 4 shot players up close. It is a little slower firing, which is why I personally prefer the X13 anyways, because the full auto capacity of it and that property of it. But regardless, P890 was ridiculous akimbo before this update. It's a lot more in line with some of these other pistols now. Borderline competitive average, I'd say it's the best pistol we have here out of the average ones, but I think the X13 is probably the most consistent and reliable pistol to use after this update. Now, the MX9 actually saw some decent buffs here. They actually buffed the movement, the ADS speed, and the sprint to fire speed when using the 32 round mag, which you're always going to do here in Warzone. So this is a competitive rifle, and unfortunately, I don't think it can jump up anymore unless it got some insane broken damage buff, just because it is so limited by its magazine capacity. 32 rounds at max is practical in solos and nowhere else really. So while it is a very reliable SMG right now, I don't see it being top tier absolute meta ever, unless it gets a 45 round mag, a 50 round mag, or an insane damage buff that makes 32 capable of wiping a whole squad basically. An interesting one here, the Kastov 74U actually saw some slight changes here as well. It was a very minor nerf though, one that I thought probably could have been a bit more severe to limit this in its overall close range potential, because really it's a rifle that is a better SMG than basically every SMG in the game. It ended up getting a close range damage nerf essentially, so it's going to take extra chest shots to be able to consistently kill a little bit faster, obviously head and neck shots as well, but overall its close range property is going to be a little bit worse than it was pre-update. Not enough to drop it down into competitive. It's still a top tier choice, but slightly worse than before. By the way, as we're going through all this, if you guys are new to the channel, you already know every single day this is your one-stop shop for all things you need to know about Call of Duty. Updates, news, class setups, tips, you name it, it is right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button. Join us ultimately on the road to 1 million subscribers. And if you guys enjoyed this video, if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Also, real quick, want to let you guys know that G Fuel is doing a pretty crazy last minute holiday sale right now. They have a bunch of tubs that are discounted currently. We're talking some pretty top tier flavors in my opinion. Starfruit, Doodleberry, the juice as well. There's a bunch of really cool flavors in different tubs right now that are discounted, and Code Immortal actually stacks on top of the discount, so you can get 20 to 30% off your entire order in addition to the already discounted price there. So if you guys ever want to cop anything there in time for the holidays or just whenever you need a restock, COD WARZONE has you covered. Link for that will be down in the description below. Now, a very significant buff happened with this update to the Kastov 545, one of the worst primaries in the game. It ended up getting a velocity buff, a close range damage buff, and a chest multiplier buff that absolutely, in my opinion, brings it up to the average and borderline competitive category. I think I'm gonna leave it just in average for now. And I only say that because when I compare it to some of the other rifles that are here in competitive, I mean, the M13, I'd still probably take over the Kastov. The Lockman 556, I'd probably take over the Kastov. The Chimera, we'll see. M4, we're gonna get to that here in a bit, but it made it a lot more viable here in Warzone. It's especially good over in multiplayer. We'll talk more on that once we get to the multiplayer meta video here in a few days. Again, stay tuned for that coming soon, but the Kastov got a very much needed buff here, and I'm glad to see that. Also, I feel like I gotta bring the M16 up to below average. It's not full on garbage, it's usable, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's staying below average, and I don't think it's ever gonna get better than that. Now, the Vel 46, aka the MP7, actually got a slight update here as well. It got a far damage buff, or a far range damage buff, which will make it more effective in like those sniper support areas. Also got a movement speed and a hip fire buff as well. Unfortunately, its damage is still on the lower end, and again, when you compare this to some of the other competitive SMGs that we have, the Mini Bach, the P90, the Voznev, which I think could also be adjusted here, which we'll get to soon, I don't think it's necessarily on their level, but the MP7 is feeling a little bit better than before, so definitely a W for that. Now, the 50 GS actually saw a couple of different buffs. Its range and one-shot capabilities, and its one-shot range, essentially, those were buffed. Its neck and upper body multipliers are buffed, and its velocity was buffed. It's still the most unforgiving pistol out of them all, and definitely not on the same level as any of the others. Now, another big change here, the shotguns, which 3 out of 4 I currently have an average. They can no longer one-shot to any full-plated, enemy. So if an enemy has 3 plates, a one-shot is impossible. So we're moving the Bryson down to average with the rest of the shotguns here, because that was one that had a really spicy close-range one-shot capability. No longer though, that's another serious nerf. And then they just kind of murdered the riot shield. It's absolutely terrible now. It was already bad in Warzone. It's even worse now. So it's not moving out of niche, but it could potentially make a run for garbage. Now, beyond what changed with this update, over time, obviously we start to see, okay, maybe this weapon works a lot better than we thought initially. So a couple of adjustments we need to make here. M4 jumping up into the top tier category. It is a super easy to use rifle, mad consistent as well. Kastov 762 jumping up to the absolute meta category. Heavy hitting, low recoil, thing's a beast. I think you can make the same argument for the RAL as well. That and the RPK, top 2 LMGs. The power is just absolutely insane there. I also feel like the Voznev jumping up into the top tier category. It is the only sub outside of the Lockman that I feel like is truly capable of winning a lot of close range fights consistently in this game, where close range fights are mad inconsistent. So that's one that I feel like is very reliable at the moment. So that is essentially how the Warzone meta breaks down right now. As you guys will see when we cover the Modern Warfare 2 one in a few days, very different situation here versus multiplayer, just because of the way that engagements work, because of the way that health works. In the coming days, we're also going to be breaking down the top 10 best loadouts to be using after this update, featuring a lot of these best weapons as well. So if you want to catch the best setups and best tuning and stuff for all that stuff, make sure you guys are subscribed with those notifications turned on. That way you never miss a video. And if you guys enjoyed this one, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. But that's going to wrap things up. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.